The amphitheater of Zalva Prime Academy hummed with anticipation. It was a structure of sweeping obsidian curves and crystalline panels, suspended high above the Academy's primary campus. Hundreds of students, gathered from every corner of the known galaxy, filled the terrace seats, their voices blending into a symphony of whispers and clicking mandibles. They were here for one reason: survive the impossible, the Academy's most infamous test of adaptability, cunning, and raw survival instinct. At the center of the stage, Professor Vokhtal loomed over the gathered students. A Zirian elder, his bioluminescent skin pulsed in lazy waves of violet and cerulean, his many tendrils clasped behind his back in the unmistakable posture of smugness. "Welcome, esteemed students," he intoned, his voice resonating through the amphitheater like a deep-sea current. "Today, you will be tested not on your intelligence, not on your mastery of technology, but on your ability to endure." The massive screen behind him flickered to life, displaying a holographic map of Aphraxis 9, a world of churning storms, volatile tectonics, and a biosphere so hostile that only the most resilient organisms could carve out an existence. The assignment was simple: construct a shelter capable of withstanding the planet's brutal conditions. "You have 1 hour." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some students, particularly the Elthari, whose crystalline bodies were designed for frigid wastelands, nodded confidently. Others, like the lanky Chitinous Draskari, bristled with unease. Among them, a human lifted a hand. "What do we get to work with?" Professor Vokhtal turned his gaze to the speaker, his bioluminescence dimming in distaste. "Humans, primitive, stubborn creatures who thrived on sheer unpredictability." This one, Captain Sam Carter, had already gained a reputation at the Academy for an alarming combination of efficiency and irreverence. Vokhtal gestured to the screen. "You will be provided a standard survival pack, complete with basic tools and materials. The rest you must source from your environment." Sam nodded, exchanging a glance with his team. Seated beside him was Mira Vasquez, a petite but sharp-eyed architect who approached every challenge like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Next to her, the reptilian Tirvac, a Phyloxian engineer who worshipped the gods of calculation and precision, adjusted his multi-lens visor. Then there was Gribnob, a squat, amphibian Thrixian whose specialty in experimental construction techniques had already resulted in 3 minor explosions during class projects. The screen shifted, displaying a countdown. 1 hour begins now. A bright flash engulfed them, and in the next instant, the students materialized on Aphraxis 9. The planet was a maelstrom of chaos. The wind howled through jagged ravines, kicking up flurries of sand and metallic debris. The sky churned with swirling green storm clouds, and in the distance, something massive moved beneath the dunes. Tirvac immediately activated his visor, scanning their surroundings. Atmosphere is semi-breathable, but oxygen levels are suboptimal. Tectonic activity is, frequent. "Great," Mira muttered, shielding her eyes from the wind. "Anyone see materials?" Other students were already at work. The Elthari wove crystalline lattices from the mineral-rich sand, while a team of insectoid Vrolks constructed an elaborate web-like dome using secreted resin. Tirvac had his tablet out, running rapid simulations. "We should analyze wind resistance, thermal retention, and structural integrity before proceeding." Sam cut him off. "Or we can build something that works before the next sandstorm turns us into fossils." Tirvac sputtered. "You can't just." "Watch me." Sam dropped his pack, assessing the landscape. Shelter. Fast. That was all that mattered. He spotted a rock formation against the base of a ridge. Natural cover from at least 2 sides. That was their foundation. Without hesitation, he jogged over and started prying loose slabs of stone from the outcrop. Mira caught on immediately. "He's right. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just use what's already here." Gribnob, watching the other team struggle with precision calculations, grinned and pulled a multi-tool from his belt. Oh, this is going to be fun. Within seconds, Sam had arranged a rough frame of stone slabs, securing them with support beams from their survival kits. Mira fashioned a basic waterproof lining, using scraps from their emergency tents, and Gribnob, somehow, fastened it all together with a gel adhesive that smelled vaguely explosive. Tiervac stared. That should not be holding. Yet it is. Sam wiped sweat from his brow. How long have we been working? Mira checked her chrono. 10 minutes. Silence. Across the field, alien students were still struggling to construct their shelters, debating load-bearing physics or struggling to mold materials into usable structures. The professor's mandibles twitched as he checked his own timer. Sam and his team were already done. He leaned against the shelter's entrance, arms crossed. So, what do we do for the next 50 minutes? Mira took a swig from her canteen. We could start taking bets on which team collapses first. Gribnob rubbed his webbed fingers together. I like the way you think. From across the field, a Falnari student, a towering, four-armed being, watched with narrowed eyes. Impossible. Tiervac, still looking shell-shocked, muttered, illogical. Professor Voktau, for the first time in his long career, was utterly speechless. Sam just grinned. Humans adapt fast. The other students were in full crisis mode. Alien teams, having spent the first 15 minutes locked in theoretical debates, scrambled to assemble materials. Some took inspiration from Sam's method, though their execution was far less efficient. The crystalline L3 struggled to shape their brittle structures under the unrelenting wind, and the Vrolx's resin-based domes sagged under their own weight. Meanwhile, Sam, Mira, Tiervac, and Gribnob sat comfortably inside their finished shelter, watching the frantic efforts of their competitors. Sandstorm winds howled, battering the weaker constructs across the field. Tiervac adjusted his visor, eyes flicking between different infrared scans. Structural integrity on the Vrolx shelter has dropped by 20%. They overestimated the tensile strength of their resin. Tragic, Sam said. Not looking up from the stick, he was idly whittling with his multi-tool. Gribnob snickered. Give it 3 minutes before the whole thing collapses. Sure enough, a powerful gust sent the Vrolx dome into a spectacular implosion, scattering panicked students and gelatinous resin in all directions. One of the Vrolx let out a high-pitched wail. Professor Voktau, observing from an overhead drone, rubbed his temples with his tendrils. Mira shook her head, watching the chaos. I feel like we should be doing something more useful. Like what? Sam stretched. We already won. A thunderous boom cut through the air, shaking the ground beneath them. Tiervac's visor flashed with new data. Seismic activity just spiked. Something large is moving underground. From across the training field, the towering, four-armed Falnari student barked an order to his team, motioning for them to abandon their half-finished shelter. Other teams took notice and began retreating as well. The ground trembled again. Then, the sand erupted. A colossal worm-like creature, its chitinous hide gleaming under the storm-lit sky, emerged from the depths. Its maw was a nightmare of rotating teeth, mandibles snapping as it reared its massive body above the field. The wind carried the acrid scent of disturbed minerals and something far worse. Hunger. The amphitheater crowd gasped. Even Voktau's smug demeanor faltered. Ah, Gribnob said. That's inconvenient. Chaos exploded. Students screamed and ran in all directions. Some tried to activate their emergency teleport beacons, only for them to flicker uselessly. Mira swore. Something's jamming the signals. Tiervac's fingers flew over his device. It's the creature. Its exoskeleton is generating an electromagnetic interference field. Sam grinned, the gleam in his eyes somewhere between excitement and reckless bravado. So it's just us and that thing. Mira smacked his arm. This is not the time to look thrilled. A second worm burst from the ground, sending debris flying. The students who had been retreating too slowly found themselves trapped between the two monsters. Voktau's voice crackled over their communicators. All students, Evacuate immediately. Academy security is en route. Yeah, about that, Mira snapped. How long until they get here? 7 minutes. Sam assessed the field. Those teams don't have 7 minutes. The Falnari team was backed against a ravine, their unfinished shelter offering zero protection. A group of insectoid Draskari were frozen in terror, their antennae twitching erratically. Mira exhaled sharply. We have to help them. Tirvac hesitated. Logically, our best course of action is to remain in the shelter and... Sam was already moving. You do that. I'll be out there saving people. Gribnob cackled and grabbed a handful of stability enhancement grenades from his belt. Oh, I am absolutely in. Mira groaned but followed. Tirvac, muttering curses in Phyloxian, activated his shield generator and sprinted after them. The sandworms lunged. Sam tackled a fleeing Draskari out of the way as massive mandibles slammed into the ground where they had stood moments before. Gribnob, cackling wildly, lobbed a grenade into the beast's gaping maw. The explosion sent it recoiling, shrieking in fury. Tirvac dragged the Falnari team into the shelter, recalibrating their damaged shields. Mira worked quickly, fashioning a makeshift barrier from the wreckage of failed shelters to buy them time. Sam, breathless, looked to the sky. Any time now with that security team. Another tremor shook the ground, and a third worm surfaced. Of course, Sam muttered. Why wouldn't there be more? Overhead, sleek Academy security drones zipped into formation, unleashing high-frequency sonic pulses that sent the worms shrieking back underground. Emergency teleporters reactivated, whisking the surviving students to safety. As the dust settled, Voctal's voice returned over the comms, heavy with something that might have been reluctant admiration. All students accounted for. No fatalities. A pause. Then, grudgingly, the humans acted effectively. Sam smirked, helping a dazed Falnari student to their feet. What can I say? We adapt fast. Voctal's mandibles twitched. Do not let the success go to your heads. Mira sighed, collapsing onto a rock. Too late. Gribnob wiped a smear of sand from his forehead. Next time, I say we bring bigger explosives. Tirvac, massaging his temples, muttered, I need new friends. Sam clapped a hand on his shoulder. You love us. Tirvac groaned. This is highly debatable. As the last worm vanished beneath the dunes, the students, bruised, exhausted, but alive, watched the sun dip below the horizon. The challenge had turned into something far more dangerous than they had expected, and yet, somehow, they had won. The next morning, the amphitheater of Zalvith Prime Academy was silent. The surviving students, battered but alive, gathered for the official debriefing. Sam Carter leaned against the railing, arms crossed, watching as Professor Voctal addressed the crowd from his elevated podium. Yesterday's events were unexpected, Voctal admitted, his tendrils shifting in what might have been discomfort. Ephraxis 9 is known for its extreme conditions, but the emergence of multiple void worms was an anomaly. The Academy is investigating the cause. Sam exchanged glances with Mira, who sat beside him nursing a bruised shoulder. Translation: they had no idea those things were down there. Mira smirked. Well, neither did we. Worked out all right. Voctal continued, his gaze sweeping over the assembled students. Despite the unforeseen circumstances, the exercise was a test of adaptability. Some teams demonstrated efficiency. His eyes lingered on the human group for a fraction longer than necessary. Others did not. A few of the more academic alien species fidgeted under his scrutiny. The Vrolk's team, still covered in the remnants of their collapsed resin dome, clicked their mandibles nervously. Sam straightened as Voctal's tone shifted. However, as with all true tests, survival alone does not determine success. There is one final assessment. Mira stiffened. You have got to be kidding me. Gribnob perked up. Oh, I do love a twist. Tirvac let out an exasperated sigh. Of course there's more. A new hologram flickered to life behind Veilshroud, displaying a massive, derelict structure resting on an asteroid surface. It was ancient, covered in alien script and ominously dark. Even the most battle-hardened students tensed at the sight. This, Veilshroud declared, is the Lost Nexus, an abandoned research station left by a forgotten civilization. You'll be transported there in teams. Your task is simple. Explore, document, and return. Time limit, 6 hours. A murmur spread through the crowd. Even the most confident students hesitated. Tiervak's visor scanned the projection and he frowned. The structure appears largely intact, but records indicate no successful expeditions. That suggests either malfunctioning security systems or something worse. Sam grinned. Sounds like fun. Mira pinched the bridge of her nose. I swear, you enjoy danger way too much. Within minutes, the teams were teleported onto the Nexus. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of ancient metal and something decayed. The corridors stretched endlessly, dimly lit by flickering emergency lights. The silence was oppressive. Gribnob sniffed the air. I am both intrigued and deeply concerned. Good instincts, Tiervak muttered. We should proceed cautiously. The human-led team advanced through the corridors, their footfalls echoing. Every so often, a shadow moved at the edge of their vision, just fast enough to be seen, but never long enough to confirm. Myra's hand tightened on her scanner. Something is definitely here. Sam held up a fist, signaling the team to stop. He flicked on his helmet light and turned a corner. A metallic screech rang out as a towering machine lurched to life, its multi-jointed limbs sparking with unstable energy. The security systems weren't just malfunctioning. They were hunting. Sam barely had time to yell before the automaton charged. Move! The team scattered as the mechanical beast lunged. Mira dove behind a console, frantically scanning for an override. Tiervak launched a disruptor pulse, but the machine barely flinched. Gribnob grinned, pulling a vial of unstable Phyrexian plasma from his belt. I have a terrible idea. Sam laughed. I like it already. As the battle erupted in the shadows of the Lost Nexus, the real test had just begun. The battle against the automaton raged through the shadowed corridors of the Lost Nexus. Sparks flew as Sam ducked under a sweeping metal limb, rolling across the floor before coming up on one knee. He fired his plasma cutter at the machine's exposed joints, but the shots barely scorched its reinforced plating. This thing is ridiculously overbuilt, he shouted, dodging another swipe. Mira cursed as she worked her scanner. The system isn't responding to overrides. The security AI is hardwired into this thing. Gribnob, still clutching the vial of unstable plasma, cackled. Oh, so we're doing this the messy way. Tiervak shot him a glare. Messy usually means catastrophic. Details. Gribnob lobbed the vial. Sam barely had time to register what was happening before the plasma exploded on impact, enveloping the automaton in a cascading inferno. The security droid flailed, its sensors flashing erratically as the heat melted through its plating. Mira grabbed Sam and yanked him behind a console just as the automaton let out a final, ear-splitting shriek before collapsing, its limbs twitching as energy flickered out of its frame. The silence that followed was almost deafening. Sam exhaled. Well, that's one way to do it. Gribnob grinned, brushing soot from his jacket. I accept all thanks in the form of snacks. Tiervak pinched the bridge of his nose. Let's just never let you carry volatile substances again. Mira checked her scanner. No other hostiles nearby, but we need to move. That blast might have triggered deeper security systems. They pushed forward, weaving through the abandoned corridors of the Nexus. The deeper they went, the more unsettling it became. Broken terminals flickered with corrupted data, walls bored deep gashes, and the air carried a faint, metallic tang. Tiervak stopped suddenly, his visor flashing with warning signals. There's something else here. Mira followed his gaze. The corridor ahead darkened inexplicably, the flickering emergency lights unable to cut through the shadows. A low, thrumming hum resonated from the depths. Sam adjusted his grip on his plasma cutter. Okay, that's ominous. Then a whisper. Faint. Alien. Myra's breath hitched. Did you hear that? Before anyone could respond, the shadows moved. A titanic, spectral entity emerged from the darkness. Its form shifting like liquid, yet its eyes burned with ancient intelligence. The Nexus had not just been a research station. It had been a prison. And now, its prisoner was awake. Tiervac's voice was eerily calm. I suggest we run. The entity surged forward. The team scattered just as the ground fractured. The force of the being's presence sending shock waves through the structure. Walls buckled. Alarms screamed. Sam sprinted ahead, searching for an exit, when his communicator crackled. Cadet Carter, this is Professor Vokhtal. We're initiating emergency extraction. Get to the relay point now. Mira pulled up the map. Nearest relay is through. She turned, heart sinking. The entity, the being loomed, shifting forms between solid and ephemeral. Its eyes bore into Sam as if measuring him. Great, Sam muttered. No pressure. Then, against all logic, he stepped forward. Mira grabbed his arm. What the hell are you doing? Buying you time, Sam said. Before she could protest, he charged. The entity reacted instantly, lashing out with tendrils of shifting darkness. Sam dodged, narrowly avoiding a strike that shattered the floor behind him. He fired his plasma cutter, not to damage, but to distract. Go, he yelled. I'll catch up. Tiervac hesitated only a second before dragging Mira and Gribnob toward the relay. Sam kept moving, dodging, baiting the entity further away from his team. Each step felt like running against gravity itself. Finally, his communicator buzzed. Sam, we're in position. With one final roll, he dove backward, straight through the relay field. The world blurred as teleportation surged through his body. The last thing he saw was the entity watching him, its burning gaze filled with something he couldn't quite place. Then light. Sam gasped, air rushing back into his lungs as he collapsed onto the floor of the amphitheater. Around him, the rest of the students were materializing, their expressions ranging from exhausted to traumatized. Professor Vokhtal surveyed them, mandibles clicking in thought. Then, to everyone's shock, he inclined his head. The exercise is complete, he said, and against all odds you have passed. Silence. Then Mira burst out laughing. That's the understatement of the year. Gribnob flopped onto the floor. I would like a nap and a snack. Tiervac simply exhaled. We survived. Sam pushed himself up, grinning despite himself. Yeah, and we'll be back for more. Vokhtal's mandibles twitched in what might have been approval. Indeed, you humans are a fascinating anomaly. Sam dusted himself off, looking at his team. The leader, the problem solver, the wild card, and the dreamer. They had faced the impossible, and won.